hereby call the City Council meeting to order. Please rise for prayer and pledge allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chamber, we pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall. Here. Mr. Maverick.
Here.
Mr. Dracy.
Here.
Mr. Kelch.
Here.
Mr. DiNardo.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here. All members present. Moving on to item E, amendment of agenda. Gentlemen, please bear with me. Beginning with, inadvertently, we had Norwood High School cafeteria on the agenda we sent out on the sunshine list. Obviously, we're in the cafeteria, so we're going to change that. We're going to add two items prior to the introductory readings of the ordinance and resolutions. We're going to add item K, a request to address council by Chief Kramer, and item L, a request to address council by Mr. Kenneth Deaver with the Norwood Police Wage and Benefit Union. Let's see if that's all that we have. And I believe that it is so. Just to be clear, item K will now be item M. And instead of A, B, C, and D, that'll be M1, M2, M3, M4. Administrative reports will be N. O will be other requests to address council. P is unfinished business. Q is new business. R is communications. S is excused absent members, and T is adjournment. Mr. Boswell.
Where did you say that the people that were council, where were they?
I will put them in item right after the second reading of ordinance and resolution, so that'll be item K and item L. Thank you, Mr. Boswell. Mr. Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we amend the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Bonsall. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall.
Yes.
Mr. Maverick.
Yes.
Mr. Dracy.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. The motion passes. That brings us to item F. Minutes of previous meeting. We have the minutes from the May 12, 2020 council meeting. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall.
Yes.
Mr. Maverick.
Yes.
Mr. Dracy.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Item G, request to address council on agenda items. We did have one request from Pastor Sonny James to address council on an agenda item. Wherever you feel comfortable, Pastor James, we have a seat here. We're back there.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue, wonderful Norwood, Ohio. I first want to commend the mayor and our police department and those who work diligently to try to keep the residents in Norwood safe. And as we see the numbers around the country continue to spike and municipalities are considering even drastic measures, it's awfully comforting to know that our leadership prioritizes the safety of the residents. And I know that means a lot to me. It means a lot to others. And I would just like to say to the residents, you know, this is a very uncomfortable time for all of us. We never would imagine in a million years that we would be mandated to take drastic measures, but that's the world we live in right now. And so sometimes it's hard or difficult to make the necessary challenges, but I ask the residents of Norwood to be patient with each other and to be patient with leadership as we all try to finagle our way through this entire mess that we have to live under. I would encourage the residents to comply and make sure that we are doing the best that we can to meet those ordinances, and that we can also show some leniency to those that have health concerns that make it difficult to comply because of respiratory issues. So I just want to say, as we press our way through as a community, this issue is important, and it's good that we're prioritizing it, no matter how difficult of an issue it is to get people to comply. The fact that our city leadership is addressing it, and it should be addressed. And I just want to have a voice as a resident to say that I'm proud to see us mandating something, because people are still dying, and now it's even young people that it's affecting. So continue to strive and press and do the great work in that area, because life is so important, and I know it means a lot to all of our residents. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor James. I don't have any other requests to address council on the agenda items. Moving on to item H1, Housing, Health, and Public Safety Committee Report. Mr. Dracy, sir.
Committee report, Housing, Health, and Public Safety on 6/18/2020. To the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio. We, your Committee of Housing, Health, and Public Safety, to whom was referred chronic nuisance ordinance, begging to submit the following report. We discussed the ordinance, spoke with residents along with landlords. We took recommended changes, and we looked to hold one additional meeting prior to discussing this any further.
Thank you, Mr. Dracy. May I have a motion to receive and file the committee report? Mr. Thompson. May I have a second? Thank you, sir. Mr. Gabbard? Second by Mr. Gabbard. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Dracy?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Briggs?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item H2, Parks and Recreation Committee Report. Mr. Kelch.
Yes, the Parks and Recreation Committee met on June 24th. We have nothing to report out at this meeting.
Thank you, sir. Item H3, Streets and Infrastructure Committee Report. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. On July 8th, 2020, to the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio, we, the Streets and Infrastructure, to whom was referred, begged leave to submit the following report. Guest speaker Rod Haynes and Dan Mandel from Williams Sales Partnership gave our first presentation of a pavement management service, which entails a street rating system that they will provide if hired. WSP will evaluate every roadway within the city limits, a combination of driving and walking each street. They will use a percentage and point system to evaluate each road from curb to curb, then compile the data and present it to the city, listing each street and the PCI rating number. They will also list a recommendation for each roadway as far as major rehabilitation, minor rehabilitation, preventative maintenance, or nothing at this time. WSP could also evaluate, if needed, current work and current grant compliance to the city if necessary. Due to the deterioration of our streets, this committee recommends fast action on this matter. We also had two gentlemen, Watman Avenue, attend the meeting for purposes of calming traffic at and around Watman Avenue and Carthage Avenue. Jeremy Madasky and Sean Kramer provided us with information of a horrible accident on Watman Avenue. They would like help of this committee with the situation that they believe is very unsafe for themselves, their families, and others in the area. Follow-up on this is needed, and this committee will do its best to assist these residents however we can. Respectfully submitted, John Braden, Chairperson, Mr. Geraci, Mr. Kelch, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. May I have a motion to receive and file Mr. Brady's report? Mr. DiNardo. Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson.
I just would encourage folks at home to go online. There's a couple ways you can go view it. Facebook Live is actually how I went back and saw that. That committee meeting was pretty useful for folks to understand kind of how that streets plan that's been talked about is actually going to come to fruition. They talk, not only did they have that kind of presentation, I'll say, the committee did talk about what they want to do next, and that felt to me like they were moving towards working with that third-party reviewer. So it's just really worth a listen. It wasn't a particularly long meeting, and I think it really would speak to at least 3 people that emailed me in the past month about streets. I think we're going to get some clarity from that. So it was a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Item I, third readings of ordinances and resolutions. We don't have any this evening. Item J, second reading of ordinance and resolutions. We don't have any this evening. That brings us to item K, request to address council by Chief Kramer. Chief Kramer. Here. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me have a little bit of time to talk, and I won't take much of your time. Do I need to say name or anything? No? Okay. I was just coming to talk tonight. I know there's a proposed mask ordinance. I think there's 2 that are proposed. First off, I want to say I know we put out a statement to the police department that we would not be enforcing the state mandate. I know I talked to Mr. Thompson. He was upset because he felt like we were saying, giving people a free pass in a car. That's not the case, and if it came across that way, that's not the way it was intended. I mean, I specifically put that we would help the health department if they required assistance, but I did not think that we need to be the ones enforcing it. And why I'm here tonight is just on the 2 ordinances. I know one is a criminal, one is a civil. My personal opinion and my professional opinion is it should not be a criminal matter. I think the only way that this should become a criminal matter is when you have a person who maybe goes into a store and doesn't have their mask on, is asked to put it on, refuses, and then refuses to leave. Give us a call at that point. That is a criminal matter, and we have no problem taking care of that. But as far as a criminal matter for just not wearing the mask, I don't believe that is, I don't think it's a good idea. So that's all that I have.
Thank you, Chief Kramer. Anyone have a question? Mr. Thompson, sir.
I appreciate what you're acknowledging, what you're talking about. Why do you think it should not be a criminal matter?
I think making it a crime to not wear a mask is, I just don't think it's a good idea. Additionally, and I've talked to you about this, I think in the current climate around law enforcement, I don't want to put our officers in a position where if they go to enforce this as a crime, and and somebody refuses, and I think undoubtedly that's going to happen because it's the unreasonable people that are not going to comply. They're going to have to use force, and I just think it's a very bad look.
Anyone else have a question for Chief Kramer?
Thank you.
Item L, Mr. Kenneth Deaver. Just state your name, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Officer Kenneth Devers. I'm employed with the City of Norwood Police Department. I am the acting chair for the Wage and Benefit Committee for Norwood Police Officers. First off, I would like to thank you all for allowing us to talk to you this evening. I would also like to thank Councilmember Bonzel. I know you did a ride-along last night. We really thank you. Appreciate you coming out and seeing the job firsthand, and encourage all council members to do that at some point in time, see what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But to get back to the matter at hand, I just wanted to give you an update of the Wage and Benefit Committee's stance on this ordinance. First, we would like to say that overall health and wellness of the residents of Norwood has always been the utmost importance to Norwood police officers. We would like to encourage all residents who are willing and able to wear face coverings, practice social distancing, and be cognizant of their well-being and the well-being of others. Ensuring the safety of Norwood residents is a daily priority for the officers, and during this pandemic and uncertain times, the safety of the residents is even more crucial. When specifically addressing the issue of mandating residents to wear facial coverings when in public places or when social distancing cannot be achieved, officers cannot ignore the concerns that accompany each such an order. The order given by the Ohio Department of Health is just that, a health order. The order does not declare any type of enforcement by officers, and the union does not believe that the order can be enforceable. The goal of this order is to achieve voluntary compliance from Ohio residents and not to ensure issuing of citations or arrests of individuals who do not wear the mask. The end goal of the order is to have citizens come together to stop the spread of the virus. Enforcement by the Norwood police officer poses concerns not only to the officers but to the residents as well. The current work environment of police officers face daily is far from easy, and frankly, the workload can be daunting. Officers require legal standards, probable cause, investigations in order to issue a citation or to make an arrest. Given some of the exemptions present in the health order, accomplishing this task and later proving it in the court of law beyond a reasonable doubt would prove almost impossible and possibly intrusive beyond the normal scope for a resident. Therefore, it is certain there will be numerous appeals concerning any type of enforcement concerning the Ohio Health Department order or subsequent local legislation. Currently, the citizens and officers are divided on the best approach for addressing COVID-19 and to what extent restrictions should be placed on the citizens. We do not want to add to the divisiveness of the community, but would rather work with the community for a resolution. The contacts they will have throughout the community, not only from the additional contact, potential positive virus a person may have, but the performance of the officers and duties. With regularity, officers legally encounter persons who obstruct investigations, flee from officers, or even attempt to harm officers in the performance of the duties. Enforcing a facial covering violation is a minor in nature offense with potential negative outcomes. Members of the Norwood Wage and Benefit Committee would like to see continuation of the use of voluntary facial coverings throughout the city of Norwood. We encourage all residents, persons employed with the city, and those visiting the city who are willing and able to wear protective equipment and practice social distancing. We want to be there for our residents in their time of need. We do not want to perform a task that would take officers away from their regular duties within the community. Please allow us to continue to be there for each other and each person and business and home within our great community. I also wanted to give you some stats to let you know that we are worried about this becoming a problem to where it could overwhelm the system. Currently, as of today, actually as of last night at midnight, we have 15,824 calls to service. That's a monthly average of 2,260 calls to service and about 81 a day. I just checked today, and at 6 p.m. tonight, we are already at 80 calls to service. With the face mask ordinance, it's going to overwhelm the officers on the street. It's going to cause us to not be available for other calls, and we have a lot of other issues going on within the community that the police department and the officers are working to deal with. Any questions?
Mr. Reed?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you, sir.
And giving us your opinion here. So we have two ordinances on the agenda tonight, and it is KA and B. And so you are here tonight recommending us that we vote no on these ordinances and vote these down. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
That says a lot. I mean, they're going to place undue burden on our police department. I mean, I have to take that advice. I was going to hesitate in voting for anything that would place any type of burden on this police department and more burden than what you're dealing with now. So I just want to be clear to make sure that doesn't work. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Thompson, sir.
Thank you. You're aware that the two ordinances, one of them involves having the police department enforce, and one of them involves having the health department enforce, like the current state order, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you still are against both ordinances?
We are against any type of action against the citizens to where the police department would have to be involved. If you do it, the health department is going to need police assistance if they go to enforce this. They're going to.
May follow. Currently, the health department is enforcing the state law, or saying that in which you would be required to assist it. Are you willing to do that under state mandate?
Absolutely. We would do whatever we were asked to by the city.
Then why would you be unwilling to do it under city?
I'm sorry?
Then why would you be unwilling to do it under a city mandate or a city ordinance?
It wouldn't be needed then if we're already doing what the state is our stance. If it's already being done, then we would not need another ordinance on top of that ordinance to enforce it. Is what we're saying, sir.
It's part of the reason, and this probably might be in your discussion, but I'll bring it up here. It's part of the reason I chose to bring this here, and I was going to do it as a special meeting last week, but the state passed. Was that I wanted the city to have control over whether it wanted to have a mask ordinance or not to the state, because up until last week, the governor had defaulted to the city's decisions on masks for quite some time. So I thought that it would be best if the city had its own version, where it was the city deciding whether or not we wanted masks after what would have happened with the state. Now, it's currently state only happens up here in level 3 or level 4, Durham Valley level 3, and a mask ordinance. We as an independent city might decide we want to continue a mask requirement at that point, which is why I brought it today. I am going to detail that, but I just want to understand one of these is mirroring the state. It just gives the ownership of it and puts it on the city and allows us to be decided after and doesn't require sex. So knowing that as your position still, you do not support both ordinances.
That's correct. We do not support a local ordinance for an already existing ordinance from the state.
Even though it might take effect or have benefit after the state mandate expires.
I can't tell you what it will or not do. I don't know, sir.
Point of order, Mr. President. We're going to have a discussion about these ordinances later.
I understand that, but I want to understand the police department's position on the ordinances that are proposing.
I think we answered. I think we answered.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned this is a rather minor infraction, and it would $25 penalty if it's a minor infraction. And if the police is busy and they have to help, cover many other things. But there are many minor laws on the books that I imagine you're not willing to come out and say that you're for or against, you don't have the time, you don't have the manpower to enforce. The reason that is because we still want people to obey those laws and obey those ordinances, whether they know they're being enforced or not. So by you coming here and stating that the police does not support this particular ordinance, again, it's the same thing I said to Chief Kramer over the phone. You're kind of giving permission for a certain group of people within our city who doesn't want to pay attention to this and does not want to participate. You're saying, go ahead. Even though you're coming in and saying that you're encouraging them, you in essence remove the potential for penalty.
Yes, sir.
And which makes it incredibly difficult to get people, if people knew that you weren't going to enforce speeding through the city, it would be incredibly difficult to get people to not speed. So here we are in a situation where we're saying we're not going to enforce masks in the city. That's going to make it incredibly difficult to get people to wear masks. That's not enough. But I appreciate you coming and saying that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Tracy, sir.
I'm not going to speak for or against this ordinance right now. I'll wait until the ordinance comes up. However, I will suggest that this is not a law. It's not a state law. It's a mandate, health department mandate. So let's not any of us as council members put out that this is a state law.
You're correct.
Unless you can show me an ORC that says this is a state law, there is nothing in the state that says it's a state law. It's a health mandate, okay? It's part of the health department, not police department.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Anyone else? Mr. Thompson?
But what we're dealing with here is going to be a city ordinance, which makes it a city law and separates it from the state mandate. And you're correct that it is a state mandate.
That's what's here.
That's what's here, not what's current.
You discussed that it was state law. That's all I'm trying to do is clear it up.
You're correct.
It's not state law.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else? Mr. Brandon?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I can respect Mr. Thompson's view and wanting to protect people from this virus. I can respect that. I would just hope, and I would hope that this body would not put undue circumstances on our police department. And the other thing, in my mind, this is an unnecessary discussion because and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who would know better than I, when our police officers take an oath, they take an oath in the state of Ohio. So any state mandate or law during the state will have to be represented here in Norwood. So to me, this is unnecessary, and I will not be placing any undue burden on our police department, and I would encourage anyone else to not do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Anyone else? Mr. Thompson? I'm sorry. Mr. Bonds?
It's hard to tell. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to thank you all for coming here and possibly holders. In particular, thank you for letting me write on last night. It was very I was just curious, just so citizens know, what happens currently if police officers are on a low priority call and a much higher priority call? Would they be forced to complete that low priority call, or would they leave that call or leave whatever they're doing and go to the high priority call?
Typically, teach the officer, it's officer discretion on what to do at that point. If the subject is already in custody, we have to stay with that person until the end. If the subject's not in custody, which is if we're issuing a citation, the person would be technically in custody at that time. So we would have to stay until we completed that situation.
Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any, I guess, do you know how often you will respond currently today to assistance to help the health department enforce the order in a public place? Are there any, I
help out the health department. We've gotten calls for the health department for unsanitary housing or anything like that when they're speaking to somebody about any violations they may found at a house. We go with the building department. We go with multiple different departments in the city to help them enforce any type of action they have. Yes.
Mr. Sponsor. Thanks, sir.
Well, this is kind of unrelated to anything that's being here today, or whatever that on the agenda. But what would be your opinion if an ordinance was directed more at the businesses to enforce what their customers have in house and issuing a civil fine against the business? If you're wage and benefit committee, any opinion, if it wasn't on the individual person to be fined, it was on the business for having customers in your store that were following city ordinance requirements.
I'm sorry, you kind of muffled, but am I getting, if a customer was at a business and they're violating their policies at that time, what would our action be? Is that what you're...
If the city required that all businesses mandate, unless somebody has a specific exception, but mandate that people have masks in their business, and that the business is the one that actually get the fine or the civil penalty, not the civilian, not the resident. Have you all discussed that at all, or do you have any position on something like that?
That would be something better answered by chief, but if it's civil, typically the police department would not handle that, is my understanding, unless chief or the lieutenants would direct something else.
Oh, I agree. The health department issue that, but you all you're opposed to the civil ordinance that would be enforced by the health department to require masks. So I just didn't know if you had a position if the business was the one that was kind of liable, not the individual.
Again, I think the union stance on that would be it's the business's decision on what they want. And if they have a customer in there that's violating their policy of wearing a mask, then that business has a right to refuse them service and have them escorted out. At which point, if that person refuses, then it could be a criminal charge of criminal trespassing if it goes that route.
I just want to interject something here real quick. I just had a text from Tyler. Folks at home are having difficulty hearing us. If you could bring your mics a little closer to you. Appreciate that. Was that everything, Mr. Monsell? Thank you, sir. Mr. Tracy?
Thank you for coming out. Just to kind of piggyback off of Mr. Barnwell here. When he asked if you go out to help other departments such as building and health department, those are typically scheduled with those departments, correct? There's not typically an officer that gets called on a call for service that's on road patrol that goes over there to assist them, correct?
Typically, we have a heads up most of the time, but there are situations where it comes out of the blue.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Anyone else? Mr. Niebuhr, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, everyone.
Thanks, Elwood. Moving on to item M1, ordinance requiring facial coverings to be worn in certain circumstances during the pendency of the mayor's emergency declaration for the safe reopening of Norwood during the COVID-19 pandemic and declaring an emergency, and this is A. Mr. Thompson.
And a question to the Associate Law Director. Would you mind the difference between the ordinances are not covered in the summary here, so as you quickly let us know what the difference between ordinance A and ordinance B is.
Mr. Gary.
Yes. The one contemplates a civil penalty. The other contemplates a minor misdemeanor, $25 fine, and court costs. And I need to figure out which is which here.
The civil is A.
Which civil penalty is A? Yeah, the minor misdemeanor is B.
had a follow-up question, but it's on the same lines. In terms of what enforcement would look like, and if this requires Kramer, please fill in. For the civil item, yes, for B, it feels like a ticket. Okay? I think we all understand that one. What does civil, the enforcement of A, mean?
It would simply be a civil penalty that the violator would have to pay unless they contested that finding by appealing it to the Board of Health. Board of Health meets once a month, and they would be able to appeal that decision administratively to the Board of Health and let the board decide whether in fact there was a violation that occurred. It is not a criminal violation.
Would the penalty associated with that violation still just be some sort of like dollar figure?
It's a civil penalty.
It's still $25.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it'd be, I'm not sure what I'd compare it to exactly, but it's like a penalty for not paying your taxes on time. Not a criminal penalty, a civil penalty.
But the dollar figure is basically the same.
Dollar figure is the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Dracy, sir.
Through the chair to the assistant law director. What type of evidence are we requiring in order for somebody to be found guilty of the civil penalty?
That depends upon what the enforcing agent wants, feels that it's been proved. In other words, it's up to them.
So it could be he said, right?
I would expect that would not be the case. I would expect that the health department officer would probably want to see it themselves.
I understand that, but we don't have our health department having body cameras. We don't have our health department.
That's true, but they've got eyes.
Video cameras. I mean, we're going to have. Are we going to have them carry cameras in order to prove? Should it prove?
I don't know that that's necessary. That would depend upon what the Board of Health would require in hearing testimony about any appeal of it.
So we don't even know right now as to what the Board of Health's structure is for this civil ordinance.
Well, the Board of Health has sanitarians, has a sanitarian, has nurses, has an inspector. Those people issue orders and issue fines. And then, again, this setup is so that the Board of Health could hear any administrative appeal of those fines.
I understand. Let's take Long Branch, for instance. You know, our health inspector.
Yes.
I'm sure he goes out and he takes pictures of these yards that have tall grass in order to prove his case if it comes to an appeal.
Yes. I don't see the harm.
I'm just trying to figure out what structure we have set up before we start throwing this out, and we don't have any structure set up. It's like starting a police department with no policy, no procedure, no guidelines. That's how it feels to me.
Well, in all honesty, the Board of Health, or the health employees generally work, I think, from, Monday through Friday, generally 7 or 8 to 5. So functionally, there probably wouldn't be much enforcement of this during those evening and weekend hours, which is a reason to consider having the police do it, because they're 24/7.
So we're looking to build our police department down with even more runs and probably quadrupling their runs just to stop somebody. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that the police department would have another reason to stop somebody and see if they have warrants. I mean, hey, you want to stop somebody for a face covering, you run their license, hey, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Run their license. Hey, they've got warrants. All right.
Well,
but I don't feel that this is a necessary process to do that. This feels kind of like the front license plate thing.
in every instance, the police have the discretion as to whether to enforce an ordinance, whether it's a minor misdemeanor or otherwise. The police, I'm sure, observe speeding all day long, and they don't necessarily charge everybody, but they observe speeding.
Well, I understand that, but the way we're talking right now, we want everybody that's not wearing a face covering to be cited by the police department. That's what I'm getting as far as some of the discussion here.
I'm guessing that might be an overstatement of fact.
Okay, you've answered my question, I appreciate it. You don't have a structure set up currently. Thank you.
Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I go through the chair to Assistant Law Director, Ordinance A, under item 6, it says that proper city officials, including board of health employees, are authorized to do all things necessary and proper to carry out the terms of section 155 below. Who is the proper city officials, and what does it mean, or if we're authorized to do all things necessary and proper? What things are necessary and proper? And it's not well defined in this ordinance.
I'm sorry, what section are you referring to?
6, Ordinance A.
Well, presumably it would be primarily the Board of Health and its employees, like it's stated.
Presumably?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it says.
Health Commissioner. It just says the proper city officials.
No, it doesn't. It says, including the Board of Health and its employees.
Well, what I'm looking at, item 6 says that proper city officials, including the Board of Health and its employees. I'm asking who are the proper city officials?
I would say the Board of Health and its employees. I don't think that's a hard, I mean, I don't know that that's a hard thing to figure out.
What is defined by all things proper and necessary? What are necessary and proper actions to be taken by the city officials and the health department employees?
To issue citations for the fines.
Okay, because that was not going to define it, but I'll make that on this topic.
Is there any other clarity you need, gentlemen? Mr. Wade, you have your hand up?
Last comment. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm curious on a question for the law department, Mr. Gary, through the chair, please. Why is it necessary that we as a city have to address this when the state of Ohio has mandated this? Do we not have to, I mean, is it really necessary that us as a city have to issue this as the state of Ohio has already mandated this? Or to me, it's just really unnecessary. So can you explain that?
Well, to make it clear, the Ohio Department of Health's order expires when they say it expires. There may be some interest, and to be honest with you, what we were asked to do was draft ordinances like Cincinnati's by Councilmember Thompson, which we did. We drafted one of them for a civil penalty, one for a criminal penalty, and that's what this is a product of. It's very similar to Cincinnati's ordinance. The difference is that Cincinnati has a very robust appeals board process in which they've got hearing officers and whatnot that hear all kinds of different sorts of administrative appeals. In this instance, the Board of Health would hear the appeals, and they meet for once a month or so. I think there is frequently a good reason to adopt local ordinances rather than rely upon the state, which can sometimes, I mean, the state is considering things statewide versus things citywide. But understand, this is a policy decision, not a law department decision, not anybody's decision other than this council's. And so we were asked to prepare these ordinances, which we have done, and asked to put them on Tuesday's agenda, which we have done, or asked that they be put on Tuesday's agenda, which we have done, and that's that. If you don't want to vote for it, that's fine. If you do, that's fine too. Sure. These ordinances are both enforceable. They're both legal. If the council were to choose to enact them, if the council chooses not to enact them, that's fine. Then we're left with this state order, which can be lifted anytime. Sure.
Anyone else? Mr. Boswell?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So I just kind of want to, there's been a lot of orders exchanged, a lot of claims made. But I wanted to address just a couple of them. Some, a previous council member stated that, how are we going to trust, the words of a...
Just a quick point of order. The only discussion we've had so far is because we had questions to the law. We don't even have a motion on this yet. Right. Open up for discussion.
My understanding was that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we wanted clarity on which was...
Yes, so we had a question was yet.
I would argue there were a lot of claims on me, but...
Is that a question to the law? Because that's who we're talking to right now. Otherwise, we can't even discuss this because we don't have it before us yet.
Well, do you have anyone have further questions to Mr. Gary?
Yeah, I'll have a question for Gary.
Mr. Monson.
Mr. Gary, can the police chief, in his discretion, decide that his officers are not going to respond to a civil or criminal, call for enforcement of this order?
Well, the chief takes an oath as a police officer to enforce all state, federal, and local ordinances. But it's still within his discretion to decide whether the extent to which he's going to do that. Same with any individual officer. Now, presumably, if the police chief issues an order to his officers, the officers are going to obey that order or face possible discipline for not obeying that order if it's a lawful order. But it's really a matter, functionally, it's a matter of police discretion always.
Thank you, Mr. Monson. Anyone else questions for Mr. Gary on clarity? Thank you, Mr. Gary. You're welcome. Gentlemen? Mr. Thompson?
Just to open up discussion, I would motion that we have all three readings of the first ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to have all three readings of this ordinance. May I have a second? Mr. Bernard?
I'll second that.
You second the motion?
Not here.
He second.
Motion was by Mr. Thompson to have all three readings. Second was by Mr. Yes. Discussion. Mr. Thompson.
Right, so here's where I get to tell you how all of this happened. So a week ago, Friday, Cincinnati passed their own municipal mask ordinance requiring people within the city of Cincinnati to wear masks when you're inside, when you're unable to social distance, several other things. I believed that these kind of things work better when regions cooperate with this kind of measure as opposed to one-off cities doing this. And at that time, we had no directive from our government, nor a directive from the federal government. Everybody seems to want to defer to somebody else. So I started the ball rolling to call a special meeting to address this mask issue and had these two ordinances drawn up. We were getting it going when it was announced on Tuesday of last week that the state was going to implement a mask mandate, a health mandate on city or on counties that were, when it comes to the state's ranking of severity level, there's 4 levels. If you're level 3 or above, you will have to wear masks in public places. There's a lot of things that go into it. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it would basically makes up the state mandate. At that point, I felt it wasn't necessary anymore to call an emergency meeting because the whole point of the emergency meeting was to get a mandate or an ordinance in place to wear masks. At that point, the state had put one in place for counties that were red level above. Now, having said that, I still wanted to have this ordinance here on Tuesday night to be discussed to decide if we wanted to take this up as a city. Reason being, the state has waffled on this issue quite a bit over the last couple of months. It was totally surprising that they brought this mandate forward a week ago. And the mandate that they brought forward is ordinance that did not necessarily line up with what the state has issued on the state level. That is why I suggested we bring these. Mr. Gary is correct, they were modeled off of Cincinnati's. We brought two basically for how we want to enforce, whether that be with the police enforcing or the health department. The way that the civil penalty for the health department kind of works exactly how the state mandate is working now. If somebody doesn't like what somebody's doing, it's the health department's job to regulate and mandate or to enforce the order put forward by the state. So that's already what's happening. The thinking here is that, at least with the first ordinance, we mimic that, but it's just at our discretion as opposed to the state. That's a real big difference. Second ordinance, same deal, except it's a ticket that's managed by the criminal system. So that's the two ordinances. The reason I think that we should adopt one is because it does give the city power, and unless, Mayor Schneider, unless you want to enact a mandate on your own without council, which I think you can do because of the emergency that you've already enacted, but you have yet to do that. So I'm bringing this here today. I want to remind people listening, people here, I think today we passed 134,000 deaths in this country to this pandemic. It's 134,000 deaths. And one of the best things that we've got to fight this is just to have the common courtesy to put a mask on so that you don't unknowingly spread this virus to somebody else. The masks don't really protect you that well from getting the virus. These are not like respirators that are filtering things. What masks do is it keeps people who are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic from spreading the virus. Currently, they're guessing that around 40% of all cases are asymptomatic. So if you're thinking you're feeling great and you're walking around, you might not actually be great. That's the whole reason for the masks. If everyone wears masks, we can continue about our business of reopening the economy, of getting things going again, a little bit more like normal. Now, everybody understands that wearing a mask is a pain. Nobody likes it. It's not fun. But it's a very small ask when it comes to protecting the people who are around you. Not just the people you know, the people that you don't know. We're a community. It's about looking out for your neighbor. And it's a very simple and easy thing to do. Unfortunately, we've seen across the country that people do not tend to voluntarily want to do this for whatever reasons of their own. If anybody wants to argue with me about them, I'll tear either one of them down. But so what we have is you see happening across the country at state levels, at city levels, at county levels, these mask ordinances that are being put in place to attempt to slow the spread of this disease till we get it under control, until potentially vaccine is available. So it's a small ask. It's an ask that I don't think enough people take seriously. I think the city should have the power to enact it if we want to, and not be tied to the state's decisions about when and when we cannot do it. And I think that covers everything I wanted to say. So thank you. I realize that was a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Governor Ryan, a short time ago, put out a health mandate to the state of Ohio for counties in 3 or 4, red or purple, that you would have a mandate to wear masks. And to my understanding, the health department, the overall department, is tracking that state mandate, as we are here in the county, which is currently 3, which is red. So we're in that mask mandate zone. This ordinance A, to me, does nothing special that one doesn't. As the second largest city in the county, if we come down or we don't have that mandate anymore, I think we will be okay, since we are a big portion of the county. I I think it's useless legislation since we already have that mandate in place. I don't think that us voting this in is going to doubly lower the COVID cases. I don't think it's going to do much different, if anything at all. I would be voting no for this because I just don't see the point of this. I don't think it's necessary since we already have a mandate in place by the governor of Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Scully. Mr. Nadone.
I think you're right. The first one, which is the one I'm supportive of, and it's worth noting that the chief would be more open to supporting the first as well. I think what it's trying to do, given that it's very similar to what you just said about the governor putting out his mandate, is in the rare event that Norwood is at a macro level behaving differently than other parts of Hamilton County. It's probably unlikely. It really is. But it really doesn't, I think it doesn't take that much for us to put into writing to have that power to control the timing. If the things that make the governor feel comfortable to move that down to level 2 or level 1 happen, then we'll probably be the same. But I think it is a powerful tool in potentially rare event that we are different than the rest of the county.
And we can address it at that time.
This just gives the power now, and that's important to have, because maybe you don't necessarily agree with everything that the state's doing. The second thing that I would like to say is sometimes this stuff, like what's the point of this? Sometimes these things are about pendulum swinging. In practice, I think a lot of businesses in Norwood and around Cincinnati are already requiring masks. Most employers are requiring masks indoors, and most services are requiring masks that are outside. And so to me, it kind of feels like we're handling, as a city, 90% of the time that you need a mask, where our natural businesses and environment are making us do that anyway. This pendulum swinging I'm talking about is really trying to handle the 10% that aren't going into a large company's workforce, so that aren't going into a big place of business or a service offering. And so I think that this just allows that last bit of tone setting to really say Norwood wants to move forward with trying to get everyone on board. And if we as a body vote to approve the first ordinance, we're not really putting a whole lot of downside. We're just trying to capture the upside of this last 10%, kind of forcing them on board.
Can I respond, Mr. President, quickly? I just want to respond to Mr. Donato quickly. This is not me being against masks or against any of that. It's the unnecessariness of voting this ordinance in when we already have a state mandate in place, which all businesses are mandated to follow, which our health department's already tracking. So there's no point for it. I'm not saying that masks don't work. I'm not saying that I don't want to wear one. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that the mandate is the mandate, and it's already being followed.
And my point, and I'll repeat it because maybe it didn't get across, was one, it's controlled.
I got it.
And second, set tone. And that's the value that this brings.
I wasn't going to talk on this because it seems like every time I talk, it seems to have contention behind it. However, as I asked earlier, one, how are we going to have the burden of proof as the city for someone not wearing a mask? Our health department, our health commissioner, they don't wear body cameras. They don't have vehicle cameras. They don't carry video cameras with them. How are we going to share that? How are we going to get the burden of proof? That hasn't been explained to me, okay? How are we going to go into a setting of an appeal or a board hearing and say, and somebody go, well, he wasn't wearing a mask, and that person says, yeah, I was. How do we prove that he wasn't wearing or she wasn't wearing a mask? That's the big thing here, okay? If we drop, as a county, down below the red level, the purple level, whatever it may be, that means we're doing something right anyway as a county, as a state. We in Norwood do not have the skyrocketing problem of confirmed cases. As we found out this week, some of those cases that were included in our report were actually from other jurisdictions, which cut it down by about 20 or 25 cases because they were from other jurisdictions, and they got transferred to those jurisdictions. We don't have the problem of skyrocketing right now. This right here, I don't even know why we're discussing it so long, because to me, this right here is just a piece of paper that we can, one, not enforce, don't have the proper manpower to enforce, and it's already being mandated by the state anyway on a state level. This is just, hey, let's feel secure with ourselves. We should feel okay anyway with the state producing this heat map, so to speak. God, that sounds killing me. I don't see the point in having this ordinance here because we're already under state mandate.
Anyone else? Mr. Bonds.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. So, it's been stated that that this could overwhelm the police department, even the civil one. But the health department, I think we should all be realistic here. The health department, Mr. Chair, is likely going to do very limited enforcement. And as Detective Deaver stated in his role as the chairperson of the Wage and Benefit Committee, the state order is there essentially to try to get people to comply, but it wasn't made for strong enforcement. Well, I would argue that the Ordinance A is the same way. It's not like the health department has 10 inspectors that are going to go out to Kroger and start ticketing people. I can imagine very limited enforcement of this. I think the point of this, again, is just one more way that we can emphasize that this is a serious matter and we really need people to wear masks. The other thing is, if somebody, let's say, even with the civil procedure, somebody calls into the emergency communication center, non-emergency number, and says, hey, there's somebody not wearing a mask, I want to see it enforced. Well, Lieutenant Rankin is very skilled there, and I think he could train his dispatchers to tell the people that, look, we're not enforcing that, you can call the Board of Health, you can call the health department. It's also stated that how are we going to do the burden of proof? They don't have body cameras. Well, body cameras are a relatively new thing for the police departments. I mean, police officers in their sworn affidavits and other testimony have had to say that something happened many times in the past. The same thing happens at the Board of Health today. I mean, a lot of things do have pictures, but they're not going to be able to get a picture of everything. So I guess I don't see the issue there. And I just want to say that me personally, I do wear a mask as much as I can wherever I go. I've forgotten it a couple of times, I will admit. But having the state order, that was out there. That's pretty important. But that state order could go away too, and that's another thing that Mr. Thompson said. There's been these health orders have been challenged in court, and some people have won, I think. And so, long story short, a city ordinance would be stronger. So I just think that we should consider the ordinance on its face, not whether it duplicates something that currently happens at the state. We should consider it, Mr. Chair, on whether we believe that this ordinance is right. Because if we're trying to say the excuse for not voting for it is that it duplicates something at the state, it really doesn't, because the state thing can go away at any time. If somebody's voting against it for that reason, they're voting against it essentially because they don't want to pass the ordinance. And that's fine, I just think that we should be clear about that because this isn't a duplication. So with that, I just want to say I am going to support the ordinance today.
Thank you. Put your hand up, Mr. Tracy.
This will be my last comment. For the chair and the assistant law director. What happens if this ordinance passes and this gets challenged in court? Do we expect that this would hold up in court if this is challenged?
How do you expect it to hold up in court?
I don't see any illegality to it at all. And Mr. Bonsall, I think, is right in that long before there was police body cam, there was police testimony and inspector's testimony, etc. In other words, you don't have to be on camera to be proved guilty.
I understand that, but police also have witnesses, evidence.
Oh, sure. Of the crime occurring. So, it's not just the police officer versus the suspect, that they have other additional avenues that they pursue other than just their testimony. That's where I'm trying to go with that.
I apologize for perpetuating this conversation here, but and it's interesting to see all the different ideologies come out here today, and as we have this discussion. But we just heard that our police department tell us that it's going to be undue. They're going to be so over. And affidavits, and have you ever filled one out? The paperwork involved in that, and that is what we're asking our police department to do when the paperwork involved in something like that. And so they have came here tonight and they have pleaded with us, please don't put them through that. And for us to, it's almost cool nowadays to go against our police, and that's really bugs me to the core. So they have came out today and begged us not to do this because it's going to cost them a lot of work, and so I really would appreciate if you guys would think about that. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Any other comments? Mr. Bonson, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to respond, again, the civil ordinance, the police department is not responsible for the enforcement of the civil ordinance. And I would just argue that if somebody would choose a health inspector, let's just say they were enforcing it. Again, I see enforcement very limited, which is why it's just an interesting conversation that we're having here. If a police officer was called, if a health inspector has somebody and somebody just chooses not to stop and they choose to walk away, I would see that we just let them walk away. I don't see us escalating that situation. I don't understand, I guess, why we're looking at a civil penalty here enforced by the health department. And maybe we asked the Wage and Benefit Committee to clarify their objection to the civil one, but I don't see there being a lot of calls for that because, one, there's not going to be a lot of enforcement by the health department. And any enforcement by the health department, the chances of that resulting in a police call are probably relatively small. The police are not having to fill out the affidavits, not having to do all of these things in the civil ordinance that they would have to do in a criminal ordinance, which I do understand their objections to that, and I understand the chief's concerns to that as well. So, again, I just don't see it, and I'm happy, Mr. Chair, if you would like to bring it back up, but that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bonson. Mr. Dracy?
So Mr. Bonson brought up a point of if a health inspector goes out and says to Mr. Bonzo, hey, you're not wearing a mask, and Mr. Bonzo says, forget it, I'm walking away. The health inspector just lets that person walk away, right? The health department goes out to another person, hey, you're not wearing a mask. What's your name? That person walks away. Essentially, what's this piece of paper, what's this ordinance going to do to make sure that that person is wearing a mask, other than us coming out on council or us coming out and letting the public know, hey, we recommend you wearing a mask, we recommend that you follow the state order by the governor. That's essentially what this is doing, and we're having this long, big discussion over an ordinance that can essentially be said, hey, wear a mask. So if we're not looking at our health department to go in a foot chase over a mask, then what are we putting an ordinance in place for? Why do we not trust our state? Do we not trust the government? Do we not trust our state, our local elected, or our state elected officials? This is absolutely, I could see if we didn't have a state mandate, let's look into this. But again, we don't have any way to enforce it. We don't have we don't have a whole lot of structure set up for this ordinance at this time.
Further discussion? Mr. Garrett, sir.
Yeah. So since the state did put a mandate in, if Mr. Thompson reached out to me initially and asked if I would be willing to call a meeting to do that, because Cincinnati had put in their mandate, and so there wouldn't be confusion in this general area. since we're completely surrounded by Cincinnati, I said, yeah, I would sign on to that. But then once the state comes in and gives a mandate, I really don't see the purpose of, going through this. The overload for the police is not necessarily the officer on the beat making a run and getting tied up there. It's 911 that we only have 2 or 3 people in there, and they're tied up taking a goofy mass call when they should be taking real calls. That's my issue with that. So I have a problem. Back when the state put in the smoking legislation, you can't smoke inside of buildings. That wasn't a police thing that you called the police and said, hey, somebody's smoking in this bar. No, you called the health department, and the health department would go out and take care of the situation. That's what our health department's for. I'd like to go through the chair, if I could, to the mayor. Yes, Mayor, has the health department in any way, shape, or form asked for us to do something like this?
Mr. Mayor.
The health department has not. Talking to the health commissioner, this is not something that they see as being necessary. They are following all the guidelines set by the Ohio Department of Health, and then when these directives and mandates come out, they follow them to the T. So they have not asked for this to be done. They recognize that the city has some issue areas, and they've been working with them, and they do send, the health commissioners had discussions, and the police department has had discussions with different organizations, different companies. So, and typically when they go out and talk to people that are doing this, they are working hard to make sure that they follow the mandates that are out there. So,
follow-up question, if I could, please.
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, since last Tuesday that the governor put in this mandate, has the health department cited anybody under this new mandate?
no, but they've had discussions with different organizations. They've been very proactive. There was a Board of Health meeting yesterday, and the discussion came up, and they're staffed, and they're out there, actively monitoring and working with organizations to make sure they know what the directives are and making sure that they're complied with as much as possible.
Mr. Gabbard.
Additional question to the mayor, if I could, please. Mr. Mayor, if we had, if we don't pass these tonight, and we have an issue, are you willing, as the mayor of the city of Norwood, to make a mandate if necessary?
If I felt like it would decrease the amount of COVID-19 cases we had in the city, and that we could control that in the city of Norwood by doing that, then yes. But I really feel like this is something that the state has put directives out and that the health department is taking care of. And so my short answer to that is yes. Do I feel that's necessary at this time? No, but as we all know, this has changed. It's been very dynamic, and if I do feel like if this directive that came down from the state said, okay, nobody else has to wear masks, then I do think as the mayor, I probably would come out and say, wait a minute, we're not there yet. So,
Mr. Gabbard.
I will say I'm not the best at wearing a mask. I'll be the first one to admit it. I forget most of the time. And I've had several occasions where I walked in a place and they said, excuse me, sir, you need to have a mask. So I think most of our businesses are already trying to push this, because obviously they don't want to be getting in trouble, because it could cause them issues with their business itself, much less the person that's violating the mandate. So, I think our businesses are doing a pretty good job. Kroger probably is not the best, but they finally started requiring them to wear them. But for all the reasons I gave, I will be voting no on this.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I appreciate your comments, Mr. Gabbard. I just want to recommend that we have all 3 readings on these, and that we vote yes on those, and then we'll vote no on that's my recommendation. Will be no on the ordinances. So have all 3 readings so that we can finish this tonight and that doesn't drag on. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Thompson?
I think most people are done talking. You all already know what my position is on this. Mr. Mayor, I do think it's bad enough that everybody should be wearing a mask. It's why the state mandated it. And I really see a need for us as a city to also take a point of leadership on this. It would appear that several of my fellow council members feel differently, which is fine, it's their prerogative. Quick question to the Associate Law Director. How many redundant, just off the top of your head, how many redundant laws do we have with the state, city laws and state laws?
Mr. Gary.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's a lot of redundant laws, but there's plenty of city ordinances that are very similar to the state code. And it's up to then, again, police discretion as to whether to bring an action under the city code to mayor's court or to bring an action under the state code to the municipal court or the common police court.
My point being is that there are lots of laws where we're redundant, where the police have the jurisdiction of whether they wanted to cite a drug offense on the city court or whether they wanted to go to state and send it down to the county. So the fact that it's a redundant ask to me is a moot point because we do that all the time. I would remind people, whether this passes or not, everybody listening, people are dying by the tens of thousands in this country. A lot of us know people who have died because of this. 6 people in Norwood in the last 5 months have died because of this. We do not know what the long-term health effects are going to be for the people who have survived this. This is a very easy thing that people can do to make sure that we can get this under control. I wish this body was willing to be strong enough to say that we want people to do that via ordinance. Whether that happens or not, that's why we vote. But it is of paramount importance to the health. This is not just health. This is public safety. This is public health. These are the people that we know, and people are dying because of it. And it's frustrating that people aren't willing to say and own up to what might be the difficulty of doing this. Yeah, it's difficult. I'm sorry, there's a lot about this that is difficult. Nothing about living through a pandemic is not difficult. The things that we do to address a pandemic are not going to be easy or comfortable. But they're things that we as leaders should do. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any further discussion? Just to be clear, Mr. Thompson, your motion was to suspend the rules and have all 3 readings, sir? To have all 3 readings, right? Okay. Second by Mr. Donovan. No further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
No.
Mr. Geraci?
No.
Mr. Kelch?
No.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Bradford?
Yes.
All members present, we have 4 voting aye, 3 no. And for the all 3 readings, suspend the rules, we have to have 6 votes for yes, so the motion fails. Mr. Thompson, I saw your hand first.
Move we have all 3 readings of the second ordinance to open discussion.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't
Said I would
understand.
move we have all 3 readings of the second ordinance to open discussion.
We have a motion by Mr. Thompson, have all 3 readings of item M2.
Yeah,
Am I correct?
okay.
Okay.
MB, yes.
B, okay. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bonson.
I would have appreciated if somebody, or all of you, would have been at least willing to give a yes or no vote on that. You didn't even entertain the idea of having all 3 readings. Well, that's bad. And to be quite honest with you, that was the one that we probably should have passed. So we didn't get all 3 readings, and we didn't get a vote. So congratulations. You get off with just getting to rattle on like I do and not put a vote down.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Forgive me, I didn't hear the last part, Mr. Thompson.
I said it's frustrating that we weren't willing to actually vote on that. and I opened this one up for discussion, but it is, you literally voted so that you wouldn't have to vote on this. It's spineless.
Mr. Gabbard.
I can respectfully disagree, Mr. Thompson. That wasn't the thing that whether we vote on it, my no, let me be clear, no. That's my vote. My vote is no. Now, whether we vote to have 3 readings and do the ordinance and then vote for it, or we just don't even vote on the ordinance. Either way, my vote is no. That's just, and I was trying to be respectful about that, but that's not spineless.
It is, because
For you
it's
to
not
call people names is wrong.
That's not a no vote on an ordinance, that was a no vote on an
Mr. Gentleman,
Well, I told you what my vote is. No.
That's great. I wish we
I
could have heard
respect
it.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
I respect the fact that you brought these to our attention and that we can have discussion on this. But for you to just then to start calling names, you know, Mr. Thompson, that's below you. You're a better man than that for you to start calling names. I know it's a passionate thing here and it's a heat of the battle and all that, and I understand that. And I don't take this personal, but you know, the fact that we had discussion on this and we just decided we didn't want to vote on that. We can vote to see if we're going to vote on the next one on issue B, but that's my statement on that.
Apologize for the comment.
We're discussing M2B. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Mr. Braden, you have your hand, sir?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Thank you, Mr. President. We've had a long, lengthy discussion, and we have 7 individual votes, and we all just voted. And I respect everyone's opinion, and it's really interesting the different ideologies. I'll say it again, it's coming out, but it's really telling that we've all discussed it. We've came out for or against it, but if it's not good enough. If we don't want to do it, it's like we'll make a law and make you do it. So we've discussed it, and it looks like we've turned it down. So I mean, let's respect that and move on. Thank you.
Mr. Gabbard.
I'd like to make a motion on Ordinance A that we have the first and second reading, and then we can come back in 2 weeks, and if there's...
We already have a motion. We already have a motion
What's the motion?
For the second
reading.
The second.
There's a motion on the floor to have all 3 readings of the second ordinance, Mr. Gabbard. We had a motion by Mr. Thompson and a second by Mr. Bonzo, correct?
I'll rescind it.
You rescind that? Okay. You rescind yours as well? Mr.
I'd
Gabbard.
make a motion that we have on Ordinance A.
Yes.
That we have the first and second reading, and then that way we can come back in 2 weeks, take a look at this again, and if things have declined, perfect time to throw this baby in order. But, if not, then we can vote no on it at that point. But at least it's still kind of viable.
So we have a motion by Mr. Gabbard
First and second.
to, you're going to suspend the rules and have
Yes.
2 readings.
2 readings.
Do I have a second?
Hold on, this is not about a clarification. This is probably just me, but are we still talking about A, the civil?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, it's just surprised to me because I thought that once we do the...
So we're going to go back and revisit A?
Yeah, because they rescinded their motion.
Mr. Bonzo.
Just a point of order. So we voted no to do all 3 readings.
That's correct. We voted no.
An additional motion can be made to do 1 reading, or
Okay.
an additional motion can be made to do 2 readings on A, since 3 readings ago.
That's correct, and that's what Mr. Gabbard did.
Okay, I follow.
So we have a motion on the floor to suspend the rules, have 2 readings of M1 by Mr. Gabbard. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Let there be light.
Call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Geraci.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
No.
All members present, voting 6 ayes, 1 no, motion passes. Moving on.
Oh, we got
forgive me. There's a little
You're not the only one confused.
little action going on.
Ordinance requiring facial coverings to be worn in certain circumstances while indoor public places during the pendency of the mayor's declaration for the safe reopening of Norwood during the COVID-19 pandemic and declaring an emergency. Ordinance requiring facial coverings to be worn in certain circumstances while in indoor public places during the pendency of the mayor's declaration for the safe reopening of Norwood during the COVID-19 pandemic and declaring an emergency.
Gentlemen, Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we, just point of order or point of clarity, do we need a motion to table or to remove from the agenda ordinance B, which is criminal?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would like to make a...
Well, right now,
She did 2 readings.
just 2 readings.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to table indefinite, to time indefinite, ordinance B.
Motion by Mr. Bonzo,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Brady. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item M3, ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2020 and declaring an emergency. Mr. DiNardo.
I wanted to have all 3 readings and vote. Just we need to get this done, so I can explain it.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo. Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Discussion. Mr. DiNardo.
Yep. Chris, thanks for following up. It looked like, I think you got a copy of the explanations, but just if you wanted a little bit of color behind them. The first community development movement of $30,000 is landscaping. You'll see an equal and opposite reduction in the same line, but for the personnel. The second is the Montgomery Road mini grant. We heard that discussed, I think it was 2 meetings ago actually, this relates to the Norwood Together group. And that's the establishment of that Montgomery Road mini grant within the Capital Projects Fund 2 that Jim set up. The next on the list is the $30,000 increased appropriations within the water fund. This is per the Public Works Director, Clint Zimmerman, his request that this is about what he'll need to finish the year. So this is kind of his request. I called him, I spoke with him, and kind of went through, no kidding, what do you need for the rest of the year to get it all done? He thinks this will cut pretty close, but he should be able to make it work. So, and it's important to note that we had enough money in the water fund. It wasn't like we had to change anything beyond just setting the appropriations for it. And finally is the $400,000 or $399,000 that will come into the Norwood Coronavirus Relief Fund. So that fund was set up. I think it's on there, but I can't see it. It's its own fund that was set up by Jim Stith, the auditor, for that Norwood Coronavirus Relief Fund that we voted on last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo, for that explanation.
Talk further if we had any questions, but...
Any questions? Mr. Gabbard.
Yeah, that first $30,000 in community development you said, what is that for?
It's, when I call it landscaping, sorry if that was a silly word. What I'm saying is we had to move from personnel to contractual within the same line within the fund. So it's, the landscaping it's no change to the total value. It's just moving $30,000 from personnel and putting in contractual. So basically labor, your purchase services.
Any further discussion?
Like a contracted person. Cool.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Can we have all 3 readings?
Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2020 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2020 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. May I have a motion? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the ordinance be passed.
Motion by Mr. Bonzo. Mr. Thompson. Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DeNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, motion passes. Moving on to item M4, ordinance authorizing payment of medical bills and physical therapy expenses for Clifford Adams and declaring an emergency. Mr. Tracy.
Can I make a motion to go into executive session for this one, just for a brief moment so we can discuss it?
I don't think I'd recommend that because I don't think there's pending litigation and there's no imminent litigation here. I'm not sure that we have the legal authority to go into executive session to discuss this.
Okay.
In fact, I think we don't.
Would you like to rescind your motion, Mr. Tracy?
Yeah, I'll rescind it.
I need a motion. Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we have all three readings of this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Bonzo, suspend the rules, have all three readings. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch?
That's second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any discussion? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, without, going into too many details, essentially, this is really, the way that this is happening is really how I wish things happen all the time. Because the city of Norwood is at fault for an injury to this person. There's no contest, there's no question to that. This person is being very reasonable to the city, and and we're basically reimbursing the medical and physical therapy expenses incurred with that. So I think there's no real reason to delay. Everybody is, this is a very amicable solution, one that keeps all, for the most part, the trial lawyers out of it. It just allows us to figure it out and move forward. So I think this is a really good solution, and I'm going to be supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo. Mr. Brady.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. So, does there anybody know the amount we're talking about? Is this just unlimited, or is there some sort of amount that I'm missing?
It's in the ordinance.
Is it in there?
Yeah,
May I respond?
Yes, sir, Mr. Gary.
The total is $7,357.79.
Thank you. Thank you.
Roughly half of it is for treatment already received that hasn't been reimbursed by the claimant's medical bills, and the rest is the possibility of up to 12 sessions of physical therapy.
Okay.
And the concept is that if we get bills, we pay them in this instance.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Sounds reasonable. Thank you.
I think it is, and I think this person's been a gentleman and completely appropriate and upfront with the city.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Thank you, Mr. Brady. Any further discussion? Mr. Geraci.
Is that $7,357 the out-of-pocket for Mr. Clifford, or is that the total that maybe our insurance or his insurance has paid?
That is the total, sir. I can tell you what, the total that hasn't been reimbursed without any physical therapy is $3,769.79 is his out-of-pocket that hasn't been reimbursed by his insurance company. Okay? And it's to 6 different providers, an MRI, doctors, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so the concept is that if he does not need that 12 sessions of physical therapy, let's say he needs 6, then we wouldn't pay as much.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DeNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Mrs. Williams, may we have all three readings, please?
Ordinance authorizing the payment of medical bills and physical therapy expenses for Clifford Adams and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the payment of medical bills and physical therapy expenses for Clifford Adams and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the payment of medical bills and physical therapy expenses for Clifford Adams and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the ordinance be passed.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo. Motion by Mr. Bonzo. May I have a second? Mr. Braden.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DeNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item N, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you. Tim said that I should not make it brief, so I'm going to make this take as long as possible. Not really. Well, move my microphone in because Steve probably is. Anyways, a lot of different things going on within the city. The firehouse roof is being replaced. I don't know, some of you have probably noticed that. We've had City Hall roof work being completed, repairs being made. We've had catch basins being repaired, Highland Avenue, Montgomery, Glenside, Clenny, and there's others that are scheduled to be repaired. There's quite a bit of that work that's in progress. The city auction, the most recent city auction, we're clearing out a bunch of the old office equipment pieces, and we've had numerous vehicles, old vehicles that were stored at Public Works. I think they had 8 of those go with this time, and we'll continue utilizing the auction website for that. The Sherman Avenue and Station Avenue parking lot, Public Works removed the old guardrails that were around that area. We're going to remove the old guardrails that are around the Station and Elm Avenue parking lot, and that'll all be seal coated and restriped, and there will be repairs made to get that looking good. I did a walkthrough with Pete Ventura there at the Fidelity Building. That's going to be an event center on the first floor, and then the office suites on the second and third floor. He's got some really great ideas, and he, of course, would like for that parking lot, the municipal parking lot, to look as good as the school's parking lot. So we're working on those parking lots. They've been, I won't say neglected, but they've been overlooked for quite a few years. So it's time to get them back and looking good. We had some street survey. There was discussion real briefly about the street survey proposal that one engineering firm brought out. We're still looking for a couple other proposals from engineering firms, but it is the right way to go, and I think everybody recognizes that as we sit down with these professional engineers. It's the right way to really plan out and make sure that we are maintaining that critical infrastructure. So if we can get the survey completed and get some of those programs in place, then we really have a tool for budgeting and to make progress in a really positive direction. So we're working on that. The water distribution system, the hydraulic study is underway. We are still working with the EPA. There's constant meetings with the EPA. Clint Zimmerman has really been a huge asset in not just his knowledge of our water system, but also in his diplomacy and tact in working with the EPA. He has really built some good relationships there, and I think we're moving in the right direction. So next year we will really be able to make some positive decisions, and that's going to be something that comes in front of this council as we move forward. Tom Perry has the website up and running. I don't know, hopefully all of you have had a chance to look at the norwoodohio.gov. It's pretty easy, www.thecityyoulivein, thestateyoulivein.gov, all one word. So if you can't remember that one, you're probably Einstein. Remember Einstein couldn't remember his own address or something, but I have no problem remembering it that way. So, but take a look, please do take a look at it, and we are working to get the fire department's website on there and the police department's website and all that connected together, and even getting some of the building department stuff there. It is very user friendly, so the administrators of it, the people in the office that are administrating it, and then even our staff will be able to make updates and work on it. So it's a nice website. There are lots and lots of landscape work being completed. If you've looked at Waterworks Park and some of the other parks, a lot of nice stuff going on. McCullough, McCullough Nature Preserve, the Lindner Park up there on Cypress is looking pretty good right now, so those are all good things. HCDC, you guys passed the appropriations change, so we will engage HCDC, the Hamilton County Development Corp., to work with us on economic development and putting together packages. Some of the things that I know Councilman Bonzel's been involved in, and maybe some of the others, I know a couple of the others have been in meetings with the playing card company developer, and we are trying to put together a package of a tax incentive package that works not just for the city, and I shouldn't say not just for the developer, but also for the city and for the schools. And HCDC, I think with their expertise, will be able to bring some more to that table for us. So we're going to engage them. That's part of that change, the $30,000 from personnel expenses. We move that to contractual, so we'll be able to get them on board. And they I think will bring a lot to us. And then one of the last things is I wanted to bring up one of the things that John Murphy brings to the table, and you know, I really have to give him kudos. We had an accident, I think I mentioned it at a council meeting, because there was an accident on a Saturday down on the lateral, the Norwood lateral, and the car, of course, flipped, and when it flipped, it landed right on the guardrail. And we have been working on getting the guardrails back in shape, and we're still working on a lot of projects with the lateral. But when I saw that, because I drove past, I was going over to Lowe's, and I drove past and saw that, and I thought, daggone it. So I right away sent a text to John Murphy and said, hey, here's your challenge. By the end of the month, I want you to have that insurance claim in to that guy's insurance, the person who flipped their car down there, and I want you to have that guardrail replaced. Well, here's the check, $4,775 to replace the guardrail, and the guardrail's scheduled. He didn't get the so I don't really owe him anything. It was sort of, but I'll still. But anyways, here's the money for it. He's right on top of stuff like that. He knows how to make things happen. He's really protecting the interest of the city, and I really have to give kudos to John for doing that. And then Clint's got it scheduled. So, we utilize an organization that does all the state, they do a lot of work for the state, and they do guardrails all over the place. So when they're back in, southeastern Ohio, that's when they will do that. So it'll probably be next month or 2 months from now before they get down there to do that. But it's scheduled, it's all done. And that's the kind of work that we want to complete at City Hall. We want to stay on top of stuff like that and not let them build up. Even like the catch basins. We know we've got a lot of catch basins, a lot of concrete work to do. So those are things that we're working on. Tom Perry was able to work with ODOT to get us a grant for, I think, about $25,000 or $30,000 for the audible crosswalk that we have to put in at Sherman and Montgomery Road. So even that work, he's gotten that fast tracked, got us a grant. Our money that's going into that is about $2,500, and we're getting almost $30,000 worth of work done there. So we're moving forward. I wish there was more. You could see more. I'd love to see roads being paved all over the place right now, but we are making progress, and we will continue to make progress. So that's it.
Sponsor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify something that the mayor said. He had mentioned that I was in negotiations or with the playing card company people, and I just want to say that that's not what's happening. What I have been doing is trying to help organize meetings between the city and the school district to come together so that we can be ready, the city and the school district will be ready to feel okay makes their opening laws, which they might have made at this point to the...
I apologize if I said negotiations. I should have said discussions. And I think the group, what you put together is a group of people that have common interests that are working in a very positive direction for everyone involved in it. It was discussions. I apologize if I use the word negotiations. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo. Any other questions for Mayor Schneider? Any comments? Thank you, Mayor Schneider.
Thank you.
Moving on to item O, other requests to address council. I have 3 this evening. First one is Mr. Lemuel James. you. State your name and address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Lemuel James. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Lemuel James, L-E-M like Mary, U-E-L, and last name James, common spell. I live down the street at 1830 Hopkins Avenue, right up the hill from Lower Millcrest. So recently I just turned 19 years old. I've lived in Norwood my entire life, and I love this city, but I want to talk about something that's more on a global scale, and it's considered as a sensitive topic, but I want to say bump that because it's nothing sensitive, it's just on how you word it. And we're all familiar with it. It's called racism. And I want to talk about it. I understand, coronavirus, it's a very big deal going around, but racism, I believe, is more important than that. And it's been brought to my attention that it's still occurring around the world, not only just our community, not just our block, not just our city of Cincinnati, the state, the county, everywhere. And we really do need to hammer down on it. And I understand I have 5 minutes. I'm going to try to, be brief as much as I can. But at my birthday party, me and my friends, we kind of just took a minute to kind of just communicate with each other and we went around the room, one person at a time, on our beliefs and our aspects and just how, and we just talked about different situations and scenarios that we've all been through in our lives, anywhere from being pulled over to, walking the halls. I graduated from here, so I've been through some things walking the halls to classes. And it's just been brought to my attention that it's important that we sit down as a whole, because you never know what the person next to you is going through. You never know what the person next to you, even your neighbor, your husband, your wife, your kids, you don't know what they're going through, what they've seen through their days and through their life. So I just think it's important for us as a whole, and I don't come here that often, I'm going to admit I don't, but I'm glad I did because I want to bring it to all of your attention that it's important that we as a whole, as a community, and it starts right here at the board, that we all sit down and we talk about racism and everything that's going on. Black lives matter, white lives matter, blue lives matter, red lives matter, rainbow lives matter, all lives matter. And it's important that we talk about that because there's a lot going on, and I have a lot of things that I've been through that, President, you might not have been through. You've been through a lot of things that I might have not been through, you know what I'm saying? And it's just important that we sit down and talk about that because one thing that we brought up was law enforcement. And those of you who don't know, I went through Norwood Police's Explore program. If you don't know what that is, it's a nationwide thing that's run through the Boy Scouts of America. Now I think they switched to a different organization, but it's for young adults aged 14 to 21. And you basically go through like a pre-police academy, and you learn everything about the fundamentals, insides and outs, the basics, to everything that you don't see on TV about law enforcement. I was in Norwood Explore Post back when I was 13 for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then they shut it down because they claim financial problems. And what I say to that is there's no reason that you should have a financial problem that you would shut down a program that's so impactful on young adults' lives. And if it wasn't for that program, I don't know where I'd be. And it's taken a toll on my life that none of you would understand. And I do believe that you guys should get that program back. I've been with Cincinnati Police Department. I've been with their Explore Post for a little over a year and a half now. But that's because and it's a very dear officer to me. He's up higher in the ranks of the Norwood Police Department. He actually came to one of your guys' hearings, and he was the one that said that we as Explorers quit the program. And I want to come to you firsthand before you all and say that is not true. Not true at all. None of us quit. The police quit on us. Why? I can't tell you that. I can't answer that. I don't know if the board did it. I don't know if the police did it. I don't know if the mayor, I don't know. All I know is that a program that's very dear to me and the other Explorers that I was with, we got shut down. Basically, we got left hanging. We had no idea. We still showed up to meetings and the police weren't even there. The whole building be empty and nobody's there. We're just sitting there for 3 hours like, well, dude, I'm going home. I got homework to do. I got to get ready for, my track meet in the morning. Like, I got to go home. I can't just sit here all night. So we never quit. Somebody quit on us, and we we're not advised until like months down the road. So I just want to bring that to your attention. I want to be the first ever African-American police officer in the history of Norwood. And I'm saying that right here live in front of you all. Okay, I'm going to change that. Not I want to, not it might happen, it's going to happen. And it's important that we have diversity. It's important that we talk about it. Most of all, is we talk about it. We need to talk about it. Yeah, it's considered as a sensitive case, but like I said, there's nothing called a sensitive case. It's based on how you approach it. It's based on how you word it. It's based on if you can back up your words with your actions. And we have a lot of organizations put in place around the schools of Norwood, around the city of Norwood and Cincinnati that do kind of open up that diversity, and I applaud that. But at the same time, we're overlooking this whole thing. We're kind of brushing it off, and we talk about masks, we talk about, just stuff that everybody else is talking about. Let's talk about something different. Talk about something that is so sensitive that not even the news is touching. This whole George Floyd thing, I'm not going to go into the details, because I assume all of you know about that. But it's important that we kind of talk about these gatherings that are going on. I told you, I'll respect that. But it's important that we talk about this stuff, and that's all I wanted to know. I understand I'm 19, I'm still kind of a young adult, but it should show you that if I'm able to approach you guys as, myself, I didn't come in a fancy suit because I wanted you to see me as I am. But it's important that we just talk about this stuff. And it starts right here, right now. So that's all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, I'll be sitting over there. Or any questions right now.
Sure.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you coming tonight, sir. How long ago was this shutdown of the police academy?
So it was probably in the year of 2016, I want to say. 2016. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Yvonne Collins.
Can I yield my speak time to Mr. Sonny James?
You can have 5 minutes, Mr. James.
Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue, in one of the most unique cities in the country, Norwood, Ohio. I want to first start off by, this whole thing with masks. Let me speak to the residents that I know come to me privately. Listen, guys, let's police ourselves and let's be safe, not just for other people, but for yourselves, people that you care about. One thing I want to say, though, I really am excited about what I saw tonight, simply because I've started an initiative that I call Hearing Every Perspective. Now, some of you have not attended. Some of you, I believe, intentionally have not attended. Let me just say to you, though, we have been having some wonderful, wonderful exchanges and experiences during these Hearing Every Perspective. Last night was very unique because it is no secret that I do not shy away from a fight of any kind on any level, no matter what, physically, spiritually, financially, economically, whatever. Yesterday I had the privilege of being at our event being called the N-word 13 times. There were witnesses there, there were families there were children there. And let me just say publicly to Mr. Thompson, you see, being a tough guy doesn't always mean fighting. Being a tough guy sometimes simply means doing the right thing. And as everybody started getting heated, Mr. Thompson did the right thing. I teach young men, your first role and responsibility is to secure the women and children. And so, as some of them wanted to come to my aid, there were those that took that lead and said, this is the right time to exit. Now, folks, what I want to say is this. It is time for economic inclusion. You're going to soon hear me start an initiative called Build It Black. I'm not trying to push black people on anybody. What I'm trying to push is, if you look at the dynamic of our community, listen, every one of you knows since 2015, I've made many challenges about this community and the leadership. I want to say to you, not one individual since 2015 has been able to come to me, not one, and say, Pastor, you lied. Not a one. And if they would, I promise you I will change it. What I want to say is, we can do better as one people. I have not invited outsiders to our hearing every perspective. You know why? Because I believe God is still in control. I believe that we as a people can come together, like my son Lemuel just said. We've got to talk, guys. And when I called in the Department of Justice in 2015, it was 10 minutes before our event started that I was being told, oh, the agenda has changed. People in Norwood kind of gathered themselves around the same people with the same agenda. Guys, we got to break it up. And I'm going to close with this. In this past election, you all know I've said it publicly, and now I'm coming live and in color. I said that we were going to change some of the seats. Well, look around. It's happened. Laying in a hospital bed, 3 votes, 1 vote, 10 votes, 99 votes. And we're coming even stronger. I'm not saying you ever have to come. I'm not saying you have to support it. But on the 21st, there is no more Norwood Day Parade. We will do social distancing, I promise you. But we are going to have Walk the Wood. I want the police there. I want the fire there. I want all of you there. No one is to bring a banner unless it's for your organization, because this is not to follow the agenda of what's going on around the country. This is to have all of us Norwoodians come together on even playing field. And then let me just say, for some of you who may or may not like my bullhorn, get over it. Simply because I have a voice, I have a right to voice that in any way I see fit. If you don't like it, pray for me. But please, if you come talk to me, be respectful. I don't know if you know what it's like to be called the N-word, but I am very angry. I am that individual that you see on TV shattering things. I just don't do it. I am that individual that you see walking up to you, and if you get it twisted, will hand your hat to you in a handbasket. I am that individual, but I don't walk in that, because I love my community and I love all of you. So why not now start saying, Pastor James, thank you for not inviting outsiders, because guess what? I'm helping to keep all of you and your family safe, because if outsiders come in, we see what happens around the country. Even on the other day, there were African Americans looking to me, and I did this to tell them, nope, not here. We're going to secure the women and children, make sure they're safe. I'll deal with it. No police recall. I'll deal with it. I want us to love each other, guys. I want us to support each other. But economic inclusion has got to start happening. That means share the contracts, help an African American that maybe have a vision or a dream, help them accomplish the grants, help them acquire the schooling, the education. And here's the last thing, don't handpick the ones that you work with, because we all know politically how that works. To shut me up, you'll bring 1 or 2 in, but those 1 or 2 somehow are always connected to the city. I'm saying open the door for everybody and anybody. Economic inclusion, Norwood, it's time. God bless you all. If you have any questions, we'll be back at Victory Park Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. We're grilling out. Come and get your rub on. Again, when you come to our events, don't bring banners, because because we're just trying to share love with one another. We're going to wave at some neighbors. We're going to talk to people we don't know. Economic inclusion. We've got to share the wealth with everybody. God bless you all, unless there are any questions. That's about it.
Thank you, Pastor James.
Thank you.
That's all the requests I had this evening. Moving on to
Yes. My name is Yvonne Collins, and I own the property at 3811 South Madison Avenue. I'm here to speak to the mayor's issues that when he was elected, he said there was 3 things he wanted to do. He wanted to get a new administrator, he wanted to get us out of fiscal emergency, and he wanted to revamp our city departments. Unfortunately, we'll discuss that later, but I want you to keep up the good work you're doing. Because I didn't expect to hear some of the things I heard tonight. And one of the things I did hear is we spent maybe an hour and a half talking about masks. But what I didn't hear is us talking about our parents and our students going back to school. I know that's a board thing, but it's also a city thing, because these are our children, and these are our parents. I didn't hear how our health department was going to give tests for COVID, how they were going to help our senior citizens make it through these depressing times. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear how we were going to take that mask issue and turn it into a humanity thing. Our police officers, I would like to see them have masks, stop people that don't have masks on, not arrest them, not look for warrants, simply say, my name is Officer Kramer, you don't have a mask and I'll offer you one. And by the way, thanks for being in our city. That'll never happen here. It's just too kind. We want to talk about police, masks, stopping people. How many calls you gonna get on it? Nonsense. We didn't hear about opening a food pantry for people that's hurting. A lot of residents are hurting. Times is tough. People have lost jobs, and you spend an hour and a half talking about police and masks. Shame on you. And I'm here to say the names of people that have lost their lives because we sent our police officers, who I would like to be called peace officers. Who are these people policing? They're peace officers. When you see police officers, you should be calling them peace officers. That's what they should bring. Every time they put on their uniform, they should be bringing peace to whatever situation they run into. I don't care if it's a kid falling off a bike that needs some assistance, or a guy that's robbing you. Bring peace to that situation. That's what I want out of my police officers. That's why I call them peace officers. We gotta get out of this police. We gotta do better. We gotta be bold in our initiatives to make change. And if you keep putting all this pressure on police to do more, you give them more equipment, you give them everything they can ask for. We still don't have peace with our police departments. I would wish Norwood was Because I am Sandra Bland. I've had my share of run-ins with the Norwood police, and by grace and mercy, I'm here today. Because they were not good experiences. I won't go into them. It's sad. It was only by my control of the situation. By my talking them down. By my being polite. And I'm here. I want to say the name of Ahmaud Arbery. Going for a job. George Floyd. I want to say his name. I want to say the name of Sam DuBose. Tamir Rice. Breonna Taylor. Shot 8 times in her own house. Yes, I'm going to say their names. I'm going to say the name of Roger Owensby. Eric Garner. Trayvon Martin. Philando Castillo. I'm going to say their names every chance I get it. Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, Rodney King, Russell Rogers, Timothy Thomas, Amadou Diallo was murdered 10 years ago. Eric Harris, William Chapman, David McAfee, Rayshon Brooks. But this last name I'm going to say, because Black Lives Matter, I'm going to put that out there. But this young lady mattered too. She was a white female, 19 years old, Florence, Kentucky, shot in the face by a police officer doing what 19-year-olds do. Never charged. So I'm going to say their names, and I'm going to keep saying their names. And with that, thank you for your time, thank you for listening, and I look forward to addressing you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Moving on to item P, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business tonight? No unfinished business. We'll move on to item Q, new business. Mr. Bernardo?
Yep. I texted with the other members of the Finance Committee. We were hoping to have a meeting on July 22nd, 7:30 p.m. And it appeared like we were okay to go to the council chambers from the email I got back a few hours ago. Yeah, so at the council chambers, please. On the agenda, we'll be talking bringing forward the 3 purchasing related assignments that you gave us. So we, at the previous two finance committee meetings ago, we kind of put together a skeleton. I was tasked with kind of firming that up. I've almost finished doing that, so I'll finish doing that probably in the next couple of days. Send a draft to the group, but then that's what we're going to be discussing. Additionally, we'll be discussing the plan for the 3rd quarter budget review that I think we as a committee promised. So those are the 2 major agenda.
Did you say the time, Mr. Bernardo? I didn't catch it.
I'll text it to you, but again, it's discussing the assignment that we got with the purchasing policies and preparing a 3rd quarter budget review in partnership with the administration and the Big 3.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardo. It's July 22nd. I don't think you gave me...
7:30 p.m. at the council chambers, please.
Council chamber. Finance committee. Did I see another hand up over here?
I'm sorry, was that 7 or 7:30?
7:30 p.m., please.
Mr. Tracy.
I'd like to find out if the members of the Housing, Health, and Public Safety Committee are available on July 23rd for a meeting regarding the chronic nuisance ordinance. Sorry. It would have to be early. Otherwise, we can do it a little earlier on the 22nd.
You said the 23rd?
Yeah, the 23rd I've got class at 4:30, so it would have to be a little earlier.
What time?
2. I know you work Mr. Bonzo on. How about, would the 21st at like 7:30 work? Okay. 21st at 7:30? And we'll do that in council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Teresa. Any other new
Yes, sir.
business? Mrs. Williams?
I apologize. We find ourselves in a position where we need to hire a new secretary to our council. We have a candidate, we recognize, and I can provide a resume in the packages today. So I'm requesting that the council, vote to go ahead and get her appointed so she can start in 2 weeks. And until that time, I will be in the office as much as possible.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion. So we need a vote on that, or we need a motion to hire?
A motion to hire.
Sure.
Or to appoint. To appoint her.
A motion. So I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Ms. Mary Mays to the position of Clerk of Council.
Secretary.
Secretary to the Clerk of Council.
Mr. Tracy, you had your hand up, sir.
I believe we've had this discussion in the past to where we don't need to appoint that person, correct? I thought that was the appointment of Ms. Williams.
I spoke with Mr. Moore, and he said we did need to vote on it.
Okay.
So I had a motion by Mr. Braden. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Gabbard. Any discussion? Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Okay, she goes by Liz.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that,
She's a Norwood resident. Her husband is a lifelong Norwood resident. She is outrageously organized, deals very well with people, and had been involved in the original round of reviews for this position, but at that point was unable to take the position. This would be the exact same pay rate as the last secretary, so there really would be no change at this point. It's just giving her some time to transition from where she was at into the office. And like I said, I've been there every day this week, and I'm planning on still being in City Hall as much as possible until she's able to start, and then I'll be working with her.
and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Any further new business? Mr. Kelch?
Yeah, a couple things if I could. If I can, I'd like to move item M1 in the Housing Health Public Safety Committee, so we can take a closer look at that and get over that one.
What did he say? I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The ordinance M1,
Yes.
I'd like to place it into the Housing Health and Public Safety Committee.
I'd have to defer to Mr. Gary. I don't know if you can place an ordinance because you already had two readings into a committee.
I think we already have to read it.
Boy.
I'm guessing that you could with a majority council vote.
Because we've already voted this evening.
That's not a votable thing.
Yeah, it's under new business.
Right.
It's under new business.
It's in.
Okay.
The council already got two readings, so this, any council member that can basically kill any legislation that's already been voted on for readings by just referring to new business to any committee they want to. I mean, I would ask that we don't think that is the intent of the rules of council to refer to the new business that's currently on council floor that was had readings for.
That's exactly why I defer to Mr. Gary. I don't know the answer to that.
I didn't bring my standing rules, or even my Robert's rules.
I oppose. Here's the standing rules.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brady.
I'm having a hard time hearing. What was the motion?
It wasn't a motion. Mr. Kelch had asked to place item M1 that we voted on this evening. We had 2 readings into the health.
Oh, okay, okay.
Housing, Health, and Public Safety Committee report.
Okay, okay.
And quite frankly, I don't know if you could do that, so I defer to Mr. Gary. He's looking right now.
We move forward with other items and...
Yeah, is there any other new business, Mr. Kelch?
So on Thursday, July 23rd, we're doing a Hunter Park cleanup. It's going to be a Hunter Park. It's 6:30 to 8:30. What we're going to be doing is just meeting, cleaning up, trimming some hedges there, trimming back some of that brush. Cleaning supplies and trash bags and such are going to be provided. They just say feel free to bring any gloves or trimming tools you wish to choose if you want to do that. But it'd be a good opportunity for any of us to get involved. I put it out to my committee members for the Parks Committee to, hey, you guys should check this out. It's going to be a good opportunity. But any other council members that would like to be out there and kind of get a good chance to talk to some residents and do something great for the parks in Norwood, I think it's a great opportunity. Again, for everybody home, it's July 23rd, Thursday. It's 6:30 to 8:30 at Hunter Park. And also AJ's Cheesecake, or Cheesesteak food truck will be there during the cleanup, so in case you have to miss dinner or anything like that, there'll be something there.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Any other new business? Mr. Gabbard.
I would like to just thank Laura Velez for the time that she did the position of secretary to our clerk, and thank you for the service that she provided, and wish her all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Any other new business? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I would like to place into committee of the whole a potential potentially codifying the Citizens Police, Review Board or Review Committee. I think that we should potentially look at that, and there's many other cities have things. Some of them are completely advisory only, just on whatever issues of the day that want to be talked about. Others there's some actual kind of review component, maybe reviewing complaints. Others have an actual component in some of the disciplinary processes, which I don't think we were going there. I'm just noting that there's many ways that this could go. And I think it was warranted discussion by all of council about how we could kind of we could look at that, and potentially we leave the thing out as it is, but I think there could be some value and some better transparency with allowing council and the mayor to make some of these appointments to the committee that's kind of helping to advise the police department on issues of our day. So I'd like to place that Citizens Police Advisory Committee into committee of the whole.
Any further new business? Mr. Gabbard?
For those that have maybe tried to stop by the tax department and maybe the door was locked or whatever, they are having a little bit of an employee staffing issue shortage. And so you can put your forms into the slot. They also have their number up there. If you do call, they will return your call. It may take a little bit because obviously everybody waits to the last minute to do everything, and then everybody's got questions. So they spend quite a bit of their time on the phone answering questions, trying to assist people with their tax returns. So just in case you get there and you're freaking out, why is it's because they're having a little bit of a staffing issue and shortage. So just be patient. Like I said, you can drop it in. You can drop it in where we put the water bills out on the street, or feel free to leave a message on with the phone, and they will get right back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I did want to mention something that the Norwood Historical Society is doing. So the Norwood Historical Society reports that more items are needed to add to the time capsule replacement that they're going to put back into the City Hall right at the corner of Elm and Montgomery. The original time capsule is made of copper and was removed in 2016 as part of the 100-year celebration of City Hall being built. The capsule's dimensions are roughly 7 inches by 8 inches by 11 inches. A new time capsule that is an exact replica of the original was made by Rodney Rogers with the intent to place back into the corner of the building with present-day items of Norwood. So far, we have some pictures of Norwood events and groups, buildings, flyers, advertisements, a bus schedule, in the Norwood 1940-1979 book that Susan Davis wrote. So first, they're seeking more items to be added that would be thin and small enough to fit the box's dimensions. All items will be placed in plastic bags, so protected against potential mold or bugs for the next 100 years. Examples of items that would be of interest to add to the box would include church brochures, community organization brochures, school brochures, event flyers, city government annual report, newspapers, city leadership information, letters from kids on what it's like to live in Norwood, business advertisements, and food menus. Anyone can donate these items by visiting the Norwood Historical Society's Facebook page and sending a private message to set up a time to hand off, since our archive room is closed due to COVID. Items can also be mailed directly to 2063 Maple Avenue. Once completed, all items will be pictured and cataloged so everyone in this present day will know what will be inside the new time capsule. And then the second item they're asking is just from the city administration, possibly is to give a deadline of when they need to have the capsule ready for when the repairs to the building.
Yeah, we plan on doing masonry work on the front of City Hall and closing up the time capsule in the next 3 weeks. So I'll say 2 weeks from today, before the next council meeting, that should be sort of squared away.
Yep, I will give them that deadline. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Anyone else with new business? Mr. Bonsall.
So yeah, just one more item, I guess, before we go back to the new business from Mr. Kelch. It was mentioned earlier, but I did get a chance yesterday to do a ride-along with the Norwood Police Department for 4 hours last night. And I'll just say that it was very enlightening, and I was very gracious to all the police officers that were there that night that taught me things that they had, and I got to see just some of the animosity that they have to deal with, undeserved really at times, and yeah, it was an eye-opening experience. The chief has said before that he's opened that up to any citizen is able to apply to do that. I mean, they do a basic background check, I think, but if there's citizens out there that are not sure kind of what our police does or kind of how they operate or whatever, I mean, frankly, I think it would be a great opportunity for people to get a chance to do that. So if you wanted more information on that, I know that the police chief is, I think, the one that coordinates it, so his email address is wkramer@norwoodpolice.org. I definitely recommend you reach out.
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Mr. Gary, sir?
I'm referring to the Council of the City of Norwood Standing Rules of Council 2021, and it says that the council shall proceed by motion, and one of the motion number 12, is to refer a motion to a committee. I would regard this to be referring a motion in this instance to a committee. It says the council may vote to refer a substantive motion to a committee for its study and recommendations. 60 days or more after a substantive motion has been referred to committee, a majority of council may compel consideration of the measure by the entire council, whether or not the committee has reported the matter to council. So I think it would require a vote by the council to refer the matter to a committee. It's not just an automatic, you can dump anything into a committee.
So we need to have a motion and a second and a vote.
A motion and a second and a majority vote to send it to this committee.
To refer item M1 to
That's correct.
the committee.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to refer item M1 to the Housing and Health Public Safety Committee. That we can study this ordinance a little bit, do some more research on it, talk to people at the health department and kind of see where they're at. Thank you.
Kelch. Is there a second? Mr. Braden?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Braden. So we have a motion by Mr. Kelch, a second by Mr. Braden to move item M1 to the House Health and Public Safety Committee. Am I correct, gentlemen? Any discussion? Mr. Gabbard?
I'd really like to have an up and down vote on this. We had a lot of discussion on it tonight. I don't know what more we could, but if you want to throw it in there, we can see what the vote is.
Let's call the roll.
Mr. Bonson?
No.
Mr. Gabbard?
No.
Mr. Geraci?
No.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
No.
Mr. Braden?
Yes?
All members present voting, we have 4 noes, 3 yeses. Motion fails. Any other new business? Mr. Bonson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So right now, the Economic Development Committee is considering murals and potentially where we might allow murals in the city, and so that work's ongoing. But right now, though, we do have a partially painted mural on Allison facing the post office from Jerry Hoff's building. And Mr. Hoff is getting letters and final warnings and stuff from the building department to paint over his partially completed mural, even though he has made an attempt to cover it up temporarily, since murals are right now a prohibited activity in the city. So I would just like to ask that these letters potentially be stopped, or we potentially give a pause and give a break to let council decide if we're going to move forward with murals or not before we make him paint over his partially painted mural.
So what is your request, Mr.
My request is just if we could have just a letter sent to the city administration, just requesting that they give a reprieve to Mr. Hoff to allow his mural to stay until August 31st, 2020.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gabbard?
Can I give just a bit of follow-up on that particular topic, just for the administration? The particular topic is in economic development, and we are discussing it, so I would agree with Mr. Bonzel if we could just back off on him until a discussion or until a decision is made and it comes before council with a vote and yes or no. There's no use to him, repainting that whole building and then turn around and, for some reason we vote for murals, and then he has to repaint again. I think that would be not good customer service. So just as a note, it is currently under discussion in our committee, so that's why I would support that.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Any further new business? Then we'll move on to our communications. We have one letter from the Safety Service Director, Mrs. Williams.
A letter dated June 25th of 2020 to members of Norwood City Council, reimbursement for 1 day of car impoundment. Dear members of council, I am requesting that the City of Norwood reimburse Remy White for 1 day of impoundment of his car, after his release form stated that his car was towed by Mine Kings Towing. When he called, the car was not there, but had been towed by Bramble Towing, and they were closed for that day, which incurred a $25 charge, as he could not get the car till the following day. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions you may have. Sincerely, John P. Murphy, Safety Service Director, City of Norwood.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonsall?
Thank you, Mr. President. The question here, I guess, to the law, or to you, or to the law director, I mean, what would be the proper motion? What would be the proper way to kind of grant this?
Mr. Gary?
My impression is that the Safety Service Director has the authority to cut that check just as a matter of course. This isn't the size of a check that would be the subject of council consideration unless the council was dead opposed to it and wanted to basically, even still, I think it's an administrative call. And I think that he has the authority within his own office to issue that refund or direct the police to issue one.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Mr. Bonsall?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I would just move that we receive and file the letter and express our support for him to follow through on reimbursement to the...
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Mr. Tracy?
I guess not sound negative Nelly, as I normally am. I don't really support this because I think it sets a precedent that somebody blocking a driveway illegally, getting there in front of it, and then blocking somebody's driveway, gets them the money back, then we're setting a bad precedent on that one.
Well, this is under communication. He's sending a letter to council, so we just need to receive and file it.
I think we're setting a bad precedent, allowing this to occur, or illegal action of blocking somebody else's driveway. That's my understanding.
Thank you. Mr. Bonsall?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the person is not getting reimbursed for the cost of the towing, whatever that normal fee is, $100, what have you. It's only because the city made a mistake by putting the wrong tow company on the form, and because of that, there was a one-day delay in getting it back. So I'm sure Ms. White had much more than $25 in charges, but because of the city's mistake, she did incur a $25 charge because of the extra day it took her to find her progress. So again, there's a city's mistake, so...
Is there a motion in a second? The motion is to you say receive and file
the letter and express support for the reimbursement.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Norwood. Discussion. All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall? Yes. Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yeah.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Yes. Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am. All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Item S, excuse absent members. All members are present. Item T, adjournment. Mr. Bonsall?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Bonsall to adjourn. Do I have a second? Mr. DiNardo, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall? Yes. Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.